Okay, so I've installed Kali 2020, I've set up Metasploitable, I've run nmap against it, but in a very simple form. I'd like to show you a little bit more about what we can do with nmap. And for those of you, uh, the recipe I'm using to do some of what I'm about to do, because this is for a course at a specific college, Texas State Technical College in Fort Bend County, Texas. We're using this book, Practical Linux Security, and I realize it's backwards. I apologize, but trust me. We're literally doing something out of chapter 1. There's some instructions in there about how to use nmap from your Kali system to your Metasploitable. So, if you don't have, you do need both of these things to have an IP address, whether they're natted, whether they're sandboxed or whatnot. I technically, in the background, I have my infrastructure server up, and I also am actually starting up one of my services servers, the first one I built. Because one of the other things I want to do is show y'all how to grant pseudo privilege. There's actually a couple different ways of doing this. And the simplest way to do this, rather than taking something out and putting it back in again, is to take my 2 servers and turn them into 3. I've got two into 3. I've got an infrastructure server, and I've got a server that's doing some web services, FTP, and we'll actually one of the things we'll do with Metasploit here in a little bit is actually practice compromising that same SFTP server, VSFTPD. Anyway, so I'm going to split the file services part, NFS and Samba, from HTTP and FTP, because they really do have 2 very different sets of network security needs. And you really have to think about not what can I get away with, but what does my customer need. So I'm going to log into my Kali box and confirm that my Metasploitable system is up. I don't really have to do much with the Metasploitable system other than make sure it's healthy. And okay, here we go. So it's there. So I'm going to make the first thing to do always make sure you can ping it. Okay, and this thing has lost its concept. Has lost its interesting. You know what? What I'm going to do? Sudo plink set ines33 down. Bring it down. This may have happened. Okay. Okay, show sudo IP adder show. So it's ETH0. Okay, so that's fine. Bring it down. There. Could not find device. Okay, there's my problem. Bring it back up again. At some point in the past, I think I probably shut my infrastructure server down. I actually paused this VM a bit, and it doesn't seem to have recovered. What I may actually have to do is restart it. So what I'm going to do, okay, wait, okay, it's coming back up. Let me check on my server. Okay. One of the other things I want to do at some point is figure out how much is running on this services server, how much of it I'm going to offload. What I'm not going to do is just rip everything out by rotes. You can use the service command or the system control command to shut a service down, and then move configs from one system to another using SSH or secure copy, something like that. So my infrastructure server is. Let me make quite certain that this thing still has the ability to hand out DHCP, because if it doesn't, I'm barking up the wrong tree. Hold on a minute. Okay, we're back. I'm going to have to take a slight digression from my original plan. My original plan, honestly, was to show you how much was running on my services server, how much was running on my infrastructure server, and then proceed to point Kali at Metasploitable. I discovered that I haven't actually implemented much of anything on my infrastructure server. So I'm going to have to build out HTTP and VSFTP at the very least. Maybe not do literally everything that we might have worked on in class, but just the basics. I also need to, on the infrastructure server, implement DNS because I haven't done that either. But what I do have is DHCP. Now, what this is here, this is my DHCP conf in VIM. I've got a couple things that I can change now. Okay, so my lease time. I want to change this. This 600, that's 600 seconds, as in 10 minutes, which is not nearly long enough. Okay, let's make that 3,600. So that's an hour, with a max lease time of 2 hours. What I'm trying to accomplish here is to be able to bring this thing down, make some changes, bring it up without completely orphaning the things which are already listening to it. So what I'm going to do is actually make this change, restart this service. Very important, you always, always, always restart your services after you make a change to the config file. And let me see if there's something else. Default lease time is, I'm going to make that change too. This is an authoritative server, and we've got lots of options here. Notice I haven't turned on my routers. .1.1. Now, if I were to do this, that would mean my clients would receive a default gateway. There is no 192.168.1.1 unless I find a way to tell the hypervisor, oh, by the way, you're 192.168.1.1. If you get any traffic, pass it on to the rest of the net. I'm not going to worry about the domain name or the name servers. This is a range option, frankly, that you can leave off until you have implemented DNS. So once I get my DNS zone set up, I'll probably come back and do this. But for the moment, I just do escape control WQ, enter. Now I did this as sudo, so I do need to sudo service ISC DHCP server restart. Bam. And now, the thing to note about this stop, start, restart business with the service command, it doesn't always tell you if it didn't work. You have to check whether no news is not necessarily good news. No news could be very bad news that it is failing silently about. So always chase your restart command with a status command. And I see what I want. My active status is green. I actually see my process ID. 3 leases are written to the file, which means that I don't honestly know who it's talking to here. This is my services server. Now I'm not going to flip this into the sandbox yet, because I need honestly to take both these servers, flip them out into the real world, do apt-get update, and pull down what I need to configure. I'm not going to do that with this one right now because I've kind of lost track of what I was trying to explain with this video. But anyway, click OK. So actually what I can actually do on it, actually I'm going to leave it up. Not a big deal. So hit Q. And I am actually going to go over to my Kali system. I'm going to try to see how long this lease lasts. Same thing on Metasploitable. Probably be easier to see on Kali. So I might. And unfortunately, because there's not a GUI to show us. Okay, here we go. It still has IP address show. IP address all by itself does more or less the same thing. So what I can do now, whenever you're, before you, one of the things you should do to sanity check yourself before you start any of these nmaps is just do a basic ping on the target. In this case, I'm going to be pinging 192.168.1.12. And it is firing it off. Remember, this is Unix, so the ping will go forever until you stop it. There, so good. And I can do nmap. So, working from Chapter 1 of the Practical Linux Security book. Okay, so we are working, starting on page 26, scanning hosts with nmap. Now, one thing to note about scanning hosts with nmap, you gotta, I mean, if you're using nmap to sanity test yourself, don't just try to get away with nmap localhost, because nmap localhost and nmap to your actual IP address may produce two very different results. So we're going to do nmap -- version. Bam. And so I see it's compiled with Lua, and I'm going to do nmap -sp 182.168.1.0 hack 24. Now, okay, so what this is going to do is do a scan. I can see these hosts. Now I know they're there. This is the range scan is something you can do without pseudo privilege. But if you want to do a TCP SYN scan for the same subnet, you would more or less have to, or an IP address. Let's do this 12. I believe let's see. I'll try it this way. Okay, that worked. Great. Let's try it stealthy. Okay. Okay, so I need root privilege for this one. Good news is I know the trick. A sudo ! will run the previous command. And it's open. And then now I've done this already. A version scan will give me lots of fun information. And it's thinking, and it's thinking. Pause this. So this is what we see before. I see ISC bind 9. It's a domain. This is what I would have expected to see. I would have expected to see things like, well, the DNS port. Notice that the server we used in class before was a different flavor, but it would still use port 53. The funny thing is DHCP doesn't show up. It will answer, but it won't show up. Let's see if I can fingerprint this. So -O is your fingerprint option. Okay, so it probably is Linux. Okay, so the last thing I did was bounce packet stream off port 80, trying to figure out what kind of service it is. It didn't tell me what version it's running, but I do know it's VMware.